when you look at original photos of Bok Tower Gardens before people have messed around with the landscaping, pine forests were the predominant forests of this area. And that's because there were always fires moving through unimpeded. Nowadays, fires aren't allowed to spread as much. So these pines are really adapted to fire areas that just don't happen as much. So a lot less pines nowadays. But many, many, many years ago, this was nothing but Pine Hill. So long needle and slash pine are planted sort of interchangeably. I think most of these are slash. Yeah. They're close enough related for me to eat them. Okay, so pines, amazing tea from the needles, high amount of vitamin C. I always think of drinking pine needles. I always do. It's like a habit for me now when it's cold out to drink a little bit of pine needle tea. And if you've read my description, according to some new research, pine needle tea has the same amount of Tamiflu as the very expensive flu treatments that you buy. So I know, right? So when I'm feeling a little cold in the weather, I'm drinking pine needle tea and also staving off some flu that's happening. So that's my number one go-to thing. A cold night like tonight, if I was sitting by a campfire, that's what I'd be drinking.
So you just pick the pine needles and boil them?
There are. Sand pine, which is another really predominant one in this area. It is a much lemonier taste, but you can overdo it, so just a little bit goes a long way. But I prefer the slash or the long needle. They taste the same to me.
Which one has the most candy type?
I don't know. You'll have to ask it. The other thing is we're seeing the pine cones, the pine seeds. Although they are not like the other varieties of pinyoles, the seeds are quite edible. Just hard to get because you want it to be developed enough where the seeds are ripe. But once the seeds are ripe, they open up and they disappear. So it's kind of like you've got to do that waiting game and catch it right on the right time. I always seem to never catch it correctly, but every once in a while, I'll have a bonanza of pine needles.
So do you pick them off the ground?
You can, but most of the times, if you really want to eat some pine nuts, it's got to be while it's still up in the tree.
Would it be best to use it, try to get them when it rains, if they close up or it's wet?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I've thought about that before.